Hello, happy, beautiful day to you, as my mentor, Dr. Bob Rakowski would say. I am Chris Pickard. I'm Director of Body and Balance in Hertfordshire. I primarily deal with pain, but my real passion is functional health, functional medicine, diet, lifestyle, getting people to live full, happy lives, disease-free. And one of the biggest problems that is crippling the NHS, and one of my goals is to actually nurture the nation to wellness so that people just don't need the NHS unless they have an emergency, and that's going to save the NHS. And one of the biggest problems is diabetes. And I'm talking about diabetes type 2 mainly. This is the diabetes that is associated with, you get it as you get older. It's like degenerative diabetes. It's not diabetes that you're born with, which is type 1, which comes when the pancreas shuts down and you don't make any insulin and you need to be on insulin for the whole of your life. This is about diabetes type 2. Now, diabetes type 2 used to only really exist in the elderly population, but it's now happening in children as well, because children are having really poor diets full of too much sugar and a lack of nutrients. And this is costing, well, this costs the NHS £14 billion a year. And it's about 10% of the NHS budget. That's just the NHS. This is let alone what it's costing the rest of the nation in lost hours of work, because well, that equates to about 25,000 a minute is spent on diabetes. It causes 100 amputations a week, 20,000 premature deaths every year. Now just think of the cost to the family. If you've got diabetes and you're on medication, the chances are you're going to be in more medication in a year's time, and then more medication, and then you're going to end up in the amputation or premature death area, because the medication for diabetes increases your need for blood pressure medication. And blood pressure medication actually increases your need for diabetes medication. So they actually make each other worse. So it compounds and makes the whole situation worse. So I'm going to tell you about my dad. Okay, my dad, not overweight. He did have high blood pressure, and he had a fairly poor diet, and didn't really exercise enough. But he was normal weight. Okay, slim build. But his blood sugar was high, and so over the course of a number of years, I mean, he tried different nutrients and he followed the advice that the NHS dietitians gave them, which is pretty poor, because if it was good, then you'd actually see people getting better, because diabetes is caused, if you have diabetes type 2, it's caused by you and your choices. It's not caused by a lack of medication. And so if you change that, it's not genetics, because if it was genetics, you wouldn't be here, because hundreds and thousands of years ago, well, thousands of years ago, even hundreds of years ago, your ancestors would have died out because the diabetes would have killed them. So it's not genetic. It may be epigenetic, which means you inherited tendencies, but that can be changed. So my dad, okay, diabetes is rife in my family. Diabetes type 2 is rife in my family because everyone's following the same mistakes. Okay, and his diabetes was getting worse, despite all the advice and nutrients and things, supplements. It was getting worse. He was needing more and more medication, and it got to a point where his doctor said, in a month's time, unless your blood sugar comes down, we're going to put you on insulin. Now, luckily, my father, and I thank heaven for this, my father is petrified of needles, and he won't mind me telling you this, petrified of needles. Goes to the dentist. If he has to have fillings and work done, he won't have an anaesthetic because he doesn't like the needles. He'll put up with the pain. And so he came to me and said, look, what do I do? I've got a month. And I said, Dad, there's this documentary, it's called 30 Days Raw. They took people with diabetes, even diabetes type 1, and by the end of the 30 days, most people with diabetes were either off their medication or lowered it, and even those with type 1 diabetes actually showed signs of improving their insulin, so they needed less medication. And so I gave my father some real strict rules. He couldn't have tea, couldn't have coffee, couldn't have alcohol, because these all spike blood sugar and put the pancreas under a lot of strain. I said he could have 1 piece of cooked protein a day. He could cook his vegetables, just had to avoid potatoes because they're so high in sugar. And so he couldn't have rice, couldn't have any of these complex carbohydrates, because if you've got diabetes, you don't want any sugar. It doesn't matter how complex it is, it's still sugar and it's bad for you. It will not help you. So he went on he didn't go on a raw food diet, but he went on an almost completely vegetable and fruit diet. And he had 1 piece of cooked protein, whether it was eggs or a high quality beef steak, something like that. And after 2 or 3 weeks, I mean, his blood sugar started decreasing, his blood pressure started decreasing as well. And so after 3 weeks, he actually came off all of his medication because he didn't need it anymore. The 4th week, he went to his GP and the GP said, the medication's working at last. And my dad went, no. I completely changed my diet and my lifestyle. Now the doctor, surprising to me, didn't ask my father what he'd done. Wasn't interested, it was just like, and so my father now controls what's happening by his eating, although because he's not scared of medication, he's scared of needles. So, and he likes eating lots of sugary things. So he basically is on medication, apart from when he's very strict with the diet. Now, since then, and this was a few years ago now, so my dad is not on insulin. Since then, and that was about 10 years ago, I have found better ways, improved ways to help people with diabetes get better blood control, better blood sugar control. And that is by then introducing something called intermittent fasting. But if you've got really bad blood sugar, what we have to first of all do is just get you down to 3 good meals a day, full of nutrients, lots and lots of raw food preferably, and trying to get you off snacks, even healthy snacks, because your body should be able to keep regulating. It shouldn't need to be kept on being fed sugar every few hours. If you keep on feeding it sugar every few hours to keep the blood sugar levels steady, which is one of the NHS approaches, then you're just putting more strain on the pancreas and insulin and all the other blood sugar controllers. What you need to do is you need your body to get control of it without having to do artificial things like feeding it regularly. So that's the first strategy. Once we've got you down to 3 meals, we decrease the time, the window in which you're eating those meals. Because the longer you can go from your last meal of one day to your first meal of the next, the more you're going to burn up all of your sugar and start burning fat. And when you're burning fat, your heart works 28% more efficiently. You get better peripheral blood circulation. You get decreased inflammation. Your pancreas starts working better. Hormones start working better. Your body becomes more sensitive to the hormones and the insulin and the glucagon that you're making. So it's a process, it takes time. There are nutrients that are very helpful for this as well. So if you've got blood sugar problems and you'd like some guidance on health and health and lifestyle tips, then please give us a call at Body and Balance, formerly thepainreliefcentres.co.uk. Our website's still up. Or give us a call on 01707 662 704. Another big cause of diabetes and the fact that your system it's not sensitive to insulin anymore is because you're toxic. So have a look at cellulardetox.co.uk. I'll put the link below anyway. Have a look at that as well. And one of the best tests to have is HbA1c, better than just blood sugar, because your blood sugar can be normal, but your insulin can be going up. And you're just getting more and more sensitive. And so unless you actually have your insulin checked, you don't actually know what's really going on. But the HbA1c tells you how sugary your hemoglobin, your red blood cells are. Not how much sugar is in your blood, but how sugary and how glycated your red blood cells are. And that's a far better test than blood sugar. Okay. Well, I hope you all found that very useful. Please share this with people that you know with blood sugar problems, even with blood pressure problems, because often people with blood pressure problems then end up getting diabetes because of the medication. Thank you very much for listening and sharing.